in the world do you manage and oversee 60 people? What is that like for you?
Well, I don't.
You got other people in place. Come on, talk to us about it. Because, you have to build to that. Hello, and welcome to the Leadership Reality Podcast with your girl, Tige Charity. This podcast is for C-suite leaders to discuss their experiences and provide insight, encouragement, and inspiration for seasoned and inspiring leaders, offering valuable solutions to today's challenges that will inspire, ignite, and invigorate new and seasoned leaders to walk in their God-given authority with compassion, kindness, and empathy. So sit back, relax, and be prepared to be inspired with today's episode of Leadership Reality. Thank you. Welcome to another episode of Leadership Realities with me, Tige Charity, where we will be sharing tales from the top. You are in for a treat today. My guest is Matt Strieker. Matt is the Chief Executive Officer at United Friends of the Children, affectionately known as UFC. Established in 1979, United Friends of the Children is one of the most successful and admired organizations serving youth in foster care throughout Los Angeles County. A perceptive leader, proven strategist, Matt is known for his ability to guide people and organizations toward imagining and realizing the highest fulfillment of their standard purpose and mission. Y'all already know I'm excited, right? Matt brings strong financial stewardship, business acumen, and operational oversight to his leadership and has a successful track record for positioning organizations for long-term sustainability and growth. Throughout his career, he has worked in a variety of social services and social justice organizations, serving youth, immigrant women, and others. He previously served as the executive director of the Los Angeles Center for Law and Justice and the deputy director of the UCLA School of Law's Williams Institute. Matt, welcome to the show. It's such a pleasure to meet you. Y'all, school is officially in session. I'm ready to learn. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you for having me.
It is an absolute pleasure to meet you. I am a huge fan of the work that United Friends of the Children do. Been hearing about it for such a long time, so thank you.
No, well, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to come and chat with you.
Yes, so let's talk leadership.
Okay.
When did you first realize you were a leader? Or what was your first leadership role?
Well, when did I first realize I was a leader? I was already in the role, I think. I think, it's funny, I think I'm thinking about people leadership when you say that question. And I was so busy, I think, kind of like charting a course for myself. I don't know for a long time if I was paying attention to who was paying attention to me,
That's good.
I was just trying to, I think what I was really striving for was really the power to make change. That's what I really wanted. I wanted to have an impact, and I wanted the authority to be able to move things forward in a way to make an impact in whatever capacity. And I was well into being an executive director, I think, before I realized I was a people leader. That people were really following me, benefiting from my leadership, and that was part of what I was doing. I think that, obviously, that's what you're doing. But I think I didn't really own that part of it till I was in the role and had been in the role for a while.
Interesting. Was the United Friends of the Children like your first role as executive director? What was your first company you worked for, organization you worked for as an executive director?
I ran legal aid called the Los Angeles Center for Law and Justice, which was founded in Boyle Heights. We moved to East LA, but had kind of served that community for a long time and worked with survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. Really great work. And it was a bunch of attorneys, and attorneys were trained. I'm an attorney, and you're kind of trained to like manage your own work. And I am not someone who likes to be led. I like to do things my own way. And I think some of my colleagues felt that way too. So maybe that was a little bit why I always saw myself as more of a peer, I think. But over time, you bring strategy, you bring vision, you're a mentor, and even those of us who are maybe more reluctant to follow kind of end up, I think, seeking out leadership and seeking out people to support us and articulate a shared vision.
Yeah.
And I almost found myself in that role, I think, while I was there. So I don't know if it makes sense.
Well, absolutely makes sense. So I want to ask you a little bit about United Friends of the Children first, just about the mission. And then I want to go into talking about, the leader of people, right? That's how you were to. That's got to be challenging. So we're going to talk about that in a second. But just tell us about the mission of United Friends of the Children and all the wonderful things that you all do.
Sure. I mean, the real goal of our work is to help kids who have spent time in the child welfare system have successful transitions to adulthood.
Yeah.
So even if you have spent, significant time or maybe your entire childhood in the child welfare system, you've still got a shot at kind of economic stability, hopefully mobility, and wellness, right? A thriving life. And we do that through two primary programs. We have a housing program that works with transition age youth, which are 18 to 26-year-olds. We have 11 housing sites, mostly in East and South LA, where people can live with us for up to 3 years and hopefully
that's great.
never be unhoused again after they leave that program. And then we have an education program that works with young people starting in middle school and all the way through completion of their higher education, with the goal of high school graduation, college graduation, or graduation from trade school, whatever you decide to pursue. And we like to say, whatever capacity we're working with young people, the thing that ties those two programs together is just the relationship building you're doing with young folks. And and the youth development work, like really building kind of deep developmental relationships. We're not just friends of the young people, hopefully we're mentors and coaches, so that they can start to build in relation to adults and to each other the kind of self-efficacy and self-esteem to believe that they can meet whatever goals they set for themselves.
I mean, that's absolutely amazing. How do the young people find your program? I mean, you guys have been around for a long time, but how do they find your program?
I mean, in a place like Los Angeles, lots of ways. So, I mean, interestingly, sometimes siblings, sometimes it's word of mouth in terms of caregivers who maybe have a variety of children in their home, or, a big sister or a big brother was in the program, a younger sibling gets into the program. But we have worked, we have relationships with LAUSD, a number of different school districts. We have relationships with the LA County Office of Education.
And they refer young people.
The education unit, DCFS. So we just try to be, in a county like LA where there are all these different public systems. Now we have a relationship with the probation department, just trying to get the word out as much as possible that we exist.
Spreading awareness.
People will refer to us, for different reasons. So if they've got a young person that, really needs like a tutor, they'll refer to us because we have a tutoring budget. We offer so much more than that, but that might be the reason for the referral,
That's the
or
first
cash
introduction.
assistance or something that we can provide. So there's usually some kind of incentive or additional motivation, and then they stay for all the other things we offer.
Absolutely love it. How big is your team?
I think we have about a 60-person team now.
How in the world do you manage and oversee 60 people? What is that like for you?
Well, I don't.
You got other people in place. Come on, talk to us about it. Because, you have to build to that. And, I say all the time, this work really does take a village, especially when you're working with kids that have impacted by the system. And we have a very small team, but trying to do so many different things, offering wraparound services, and just being that family and friends of the young people we serve. But how do you build a team of 60, and how do you even manage with the people that you have in charge? How do we get there?
I think it's interesting. So a mentor of mine really, one of the challenges in the leadership position is keeping your own cup full and the sustainability of the role. You have so many things you're responsible for. And she really encouraged me to think about, how do I want to spend my time, in my role? And then based on an understanding of how I want to spend my time than to bring other leaders in to do other work for you. And so I have a chief program officer who oversees most of the programs in the organization. And he's a chief program officer because the kind of buck stops with him on things that are happening in the programs. So, I mean, we work closely together, but I really try to have other senior leaders in the organization who have the authority and autonomy to run that part of the organization the way they see best. You know, we're aligned in terms of vision, and we partner all the time, of course, but I don't try to own all of those pieces of the work. So that's the main way. Like, I feel like I think really intentionally about what I want to do and what my skill sets are, and then I try to bring on people who have different skill sets and want to do different parts of the organization, and then let them do that. Yeah.
Aligning with the mission of the work. I mean, that's amazing. I just know as just as a smaller nonprofit organization, and for me, being the founder of an organization who ran programs, like I started the program, I did programs, and you have relationships of people that have worked with you since the beginning, but then you start bringing people in to sort of manage these roles, but those older relationships are like, no, I don't have time, I need Tige, and I'm like, sometimes so I feel like I'm stuck in sometimes the day-to-day hands-on when I'm really trying to transition into that role of being more outward in the community, making friendships and relationships with people that we can collaborate and partner with. But it's often hard because I'm still in the day-to-day. So finding the right executives to be in those positions, what advice would you give of really finding the right people to be on this bus with you?
Yeah, I mean, I always try to find people who are better at it than me.
Yes, look, you know what, I like to sip when I hear something real good. I mean, all of it's good, but talk about that a little bit.
I mean, so I've had a couple people in the chief program officer position, and I'm thinking of two right now, and we're both super talented, and they're just more credible in the role. Like they have, I mean, your and I background's a little different. I came up more on the kind of fundraising, not the program side.
Okay.
But my current chief program officer has been doing youth development work off and on for 25 years. You know, people know him in the space. Okay. So they were excited to talk to him and to have a relationship with him. And so I think when I have really successfully pulled out, I'm thinking of a job I was in when I was at UCLA, this research institute. We were small and we got bigger in the way that you're talking about. And when we were small, everyone wanted to talk to me.
Right.
And I had to find someone who just people would be excited to talk to. Almost. And he had to be really skilled.
Yes.
So he was tactically really skilled, but the reason why I hired him was because he brought a perspective and a presence and curiosity that I just knew would engage the people who I was trying to pull away from. And so I think that was, and he was really excited to do. I mean, if you're moving into the broader, kind of executive role, you've got a broader set of things that you're excited to think about, and hopefully that person you're bringing on is really excited to think about that thing. And so I think that becomes attractive to the folks. People know confidence and competence when they see it. So
absolutely.
And unfortunately, too, sometimes you have to pay for it.
That's a whole other conversation, right? That dollar tag that come along with.
But I think the point is, pay for it because it'll pay off.
Right.
Because you're going to be out there creating new opportunities.
Making sure you're creating the opportunity. That's right. It is knowing how to make those investments. And, you know, for a smaller nonprofit, sometimes you're afraid because you want to be wise with every dollar, every cent that comes through the doors. And you want to make sure, because your funders like funding program, right? So you got to make sure your program is so solid and so strong that it will attract more funders. But then you have the operational piece, the regular day-to-day of trying to find support just for, you know, to put the people in place to be able to manage all the other things. But yeah, I guess it is looking into the future and making sure that you can make the right decisions for where you're going. Right? Talk to me about the culture of UFC. What's the culture like where you are?
It's funny. I have this theory that the client, whoever your client is, really has a big impact on who your culture is. And so, you know, I used to run an organization that served an immigrant community. And I really felt like that just was in the walls of the culture of the organization, you know, and now we serve kids, you know? And so there's a real kind of preciousness about the culture of United Friends, a real warmth, a real relational to a fault. You know, like the way we serve our young people is the way people want to be treated inside the organization. So it's a big, I think, driver. I think the other thing that has a big impact on culture is the founder. You know, I think I'm always impressed by, you know, the founder of United Friends has not been, you know, she has passed away and she hasn't been involved in the organization for a long time. But when you hear people talk about who she was, it's familiar, you know, in terms of how we run the organization and the culture of the organization today. So, yeah, it's a very highly relational, highly empathetic, kind of precious work environment. You know,
that's amazing. I mean, I think building the right culture is the thing also in terms of setting your organization up for long-term success. And people don't always know how to do that, because it's one of the things that I'm still, after 15 years, figuring out. Like, I know what the culture is in my mind. I know the type of team and the type of feeling I want people to feel, especially our young people when they walk through that door. But I've found that as a smaller organization, sometimes when you're in that hiring process, people have a different way of thinking towards a smaller organization when they have access to the CEO versus a larger organization. So would you say some of your mid-management or some of your staff members, do they all have access to you? And what is that like?
It's hard in the hybrid environment now because they don't have as, I mean, I'm accessible. Sure, you could reach out to me, I'd always be responsive, but I'm not in front of people in the way that I even was when we were pre-pandemic and more in the same office environment. But it's interesting because I'm thinking about what some of my other leaders would say. I think they are wanting to always improve the culture. I think in different departments the culture looks different.
Okay.
And I think there are tension points there that we're always working through. But I think, because from where I sit, I don't mean to sound like magical about it, but I feel like it's in the walls. You know what I mean? It's in the walls of the organization. So like and I find people mold to it. So people come into the organization, and obviously there's some people who are bad fits, but like the people who stay. You know, even for myself at United Friends, I was pretty, you know, I'm a lawyer. I had been running a nonprofit law firm, and I came into a youth development organization.
Right.
Like, I felt pretty different coming to that space, but I stayed, and you kind of mold to it over time. And so even in the departments where we would say as a leadership team, we're experiencing challenges around the culture. When you talk to the line staff in that department, they sound like UFCers. You know, they talk about the kids in the same way, you know? And that's not even like minimizing all the things we would want to strengthen with that particular team or something that's not maybe reflecting the culture way we want it to. So I think it's because it's organizations are so relational. I think it doesn't have to be coming from me. I think you have to understand that you're always impacting it as the leader of the organization.
Yeah.
And I think I'm always surprised by, because you can't always see it as the leader, like the influence you're having on it. I described it as I molded to the culture, and sometimes I have to recognize that the culture is actually molding to me as well. And that's sometimes harder to see. Mm-hmm. But I don't feel like I always have to be in the spaces to for that alignment to be there.
To be there.
That makes sense.
No, absolutely. So being an attorney, what made you be an attorney? Why that career path?
Oh, well, I went to college on a music scholarship.
Music?
Yeah.
Oh my God, one of my last guests. Okay, this is sounding very similar to one of my last guests.
Really?
Yes, talk to me about that. Okay, music scholarship.
Yeah, I
playing an instrument.
I played cello growing up, and
Okay.
So that subsidized my undergraduate degree, but I just wasn't going to do that professionally. But I had that kind of like something I was very passionate about, very focused on, and then I stopped doing it my junior year, and I started interning for a research institute at the law school. And these were people who were incredibly passionate about what they were doing, had a mission that they were really committed to, and were like designing policy solutions to problems, and the kind of like can do, we can make this happen. Mm-hmm. And I think I was really struck by, because you often hear about things from a political perspective, and these were people driving, well, here's policy that actually affects change, and that just inspired me. And so I fairly quickly.
You were persuaded by your environment.
Yeah, and I went to law school, and so I went to, and then you get into law school and you study all these kind of civil rights heroes, and you want to be one of them, and so that's I went to work for a national kind of legal defense fund after law school, and interestingly found that I didn't love it. Like it was, a friend of mine once said, and all my lawyer friends, hopefully they're not offended, but I agreed with her when she said the law is the boring side of everything. And so I didn't end up being as kind of fulfilled by that work.
Understood.
But found my way into fundraising, and if you can fundraise, you find your way into nonprofit leadership fairly quickly.
Yes.
And so moved into a research institute, and then into kind of direct service work. So.
I love that. So as a fundraiser, and using your platform to talk about sustainability, because it sounds like you kind of coach other organizations on becoming sustainable, thinking strategically. What are some of your tips for organizations, young organizations like ours? I told you school was in session, right? Young organizations like ours, what advice would you give to help start that trajectory of sustainability and thinking sustainability? How does one put practical tools in place?
Sure. I mean, I think there's a number of ways in. One is I think you have to bring almost like a business plan perspective to it, in terms of what do you particularly do really well at, and so, and being very clear about it, and almost being able to say it in a sentence. Like it's
meaning you as the individual or you as the organization?
You as the organization.
Okay.
It's more specific than your mission.
Okay.
Your mission is often aspirational, but what is the thing that you do that you excel at, that you're really excellent at and known for, and how does that align with how you're funded today, and then how does that align with where the market is in terms of like what's fundable in the world. And I find many organizations aren't super clear, on that Venn diagram. Like if you got what funds you, what you're great at, and what the market is, and do the middle.
Connecting those dots.
That really kind of centers you, I think, for long-term kind of sustainability.
That's good.
And I mean, interestingly, when I was at the LA Center for Law and Justice, just to give you a sense of, it might feel like an obvious thing, but they were, we were like at the time 70% funded to do domestic violence work. Most of our attorneys were experts in domestic violence. And yet, the organization did not think of itself as an organization that primarily served survivors of violence. And then there were a lot of reasons, understandable reasons for that, but it does take some intentionality to pull those things together, and then to make that your North Star always for your work, not to creep from that. The other thing, and I think what kind of underlines all of that, is just a really strong financial lens on your organization.
That's good.
I often say you can really understand, and you see a narrative of who your organization is, and you can see a narrative of your organization's history if you just look at financials over a period of time.
That's good.
And that
numbers don't lie.
Numbers don't lie. You don't. And they have helped me so many. I mean, weirdly, it's how I approach fundraising as well, because oftentimes people may say to me they have a fundraising problem, and I often think, well, maybe you have a finance problem. Like, let's understand what's going on financially with your organization, and then that can help inform the revenue strategy long term, but it's not like we just need to go find this money because we are $100,000 short this year or something.
Right.
So those are
some tools. Those are some really good tools. And you talk about, the word fundraising often makes me kind of always get a little, it's never my favorite thing as a leader. When I started Kids in the Spotlight, and I knew very clearly what the mission of the organization is. I knew exactly what we were planning to do. And for some reason, I thought the fact that we are out on the front line really helping young people impacted by foster care create sustainable, outcomes for themselves and a career path and leadership and all of that, everybody was going to say, I want to give to that. Sign me up. And it just didn't happen that way. And I think that was the biggest wake-up call for me. And I was like, so I got to do more? Like, how do I put myself out there to then become the fundraiser for the organization? And I'm still figuring that out, right? So what advice do you give your CEOs of nonprofits in particular to give them that courage to go out and be the fundraiser for the work you're doing?
I think it's always scary, or at least it's always scary to me, when it is, we need to raise X amount of dollars through like individual giving. Like we need to just go out and just ask people to make big gifts to the organization. Like that's just, in and of itself, I mean, it's, we probably both have a lot of practice at it at this point, but it's not, when you think of it in that narrow way, there is something kind of scary about it. Which is why I really like the strong kind of business financial, like it's a strategy, and you have to really understand, like in child welfare, I think a lot about the fact that like this is primarily like a publicly funded system, and there's like a limited amount of private dollars on the outside of that. And so then what is the biggest value that we can have in private philanthropy, our biggest impact on young people's lives, And so I guess what I'm starting to get at is, okay, so that's the market, right? It's like, what are those private dollars, and what are people's motivations around how they spend that private dollars, and then how can I market myself to them? And I'm kind of just thinking about it, if I'm coming at it from that kind of strategic perspective, I feel empowered, if that makes some sense.
That's good,
because I'm not just like kind of like, flailing, I have to find this money. It's like I am driving a program, and it's not just fundraising. It's like I'm positioning my program for those dollars. And then when I'm having conversations with people about giving, it's a business proposition. It's like if I'm going to a big donor, I'm talking them through everything. I'm just talking you through. And this is what my budget looks like, and this is the power of your impact, and this is like in my housing program, that's a largely publicly funded program. I tell my major donors, look, the government is paying for the really hard stuff of housing these kids. You get to do the transformative work,
I like that.
where they never are homeless again. Like it's the work it's the therapy, it's the life skills training, and that is like you're leveraging with this small piece of money, all of this other money that's being invested, and that to me is just a more exciting conversation to have.
Absolutely.
I'm more excited. It's not like me calling you up saying, "Hey, can I have, can you renew your $5,000 gift or your $500 gift?" You do that too.
Yeah.
But I like having that more kind of financial lens on it.
I love that. Man, okay, so we're going to be wrapping it up soon, and I got like 50 million more questions I want to ask. But I want to say, who's your favorite leader, or who do you admire as a leader? Who are some of the leaders, I should say, you admire?
Well, it's funny. I don't know that So my answer to this question has historically always been Samwise. Are you a Lord of the Rings person at all?
I am not. No, right. I've never even watched it. Y'all, please don't be mad at me. I've never watched Lord of the Rings, but no, I haven't watched it. But it's of course a movie that I'm very familiar with.
Sure.
A franchise that I'm very familiar with.
There is a character called Samwise Gamgee in that, and he is like the main character's best friend, who is like the workhorse through the movies. He's the person or the story who like is always there for the main character, who is always showing up. Like really ends up being, from my perspective, I think there's like articles written about this, like the real hero of the story. But he's not the like star of the movie. And so I always, those are the kinds of leaders that I aspire to be, admire. So
that's great. How would your team describe you as a leader?
Well, they would say, I think they would. So some of the things people have said is kind of like strategic and analytical to a fault. Runs the organization by the budget, like financial lens. And I think, I don't know if they would, I don't know if they would use the word empathetic, but I think that's what they would be talking about. I think people feel seen, feel mentored.
That's good.
Feel supportive.
Good.
Feel like they can make mistakes.
Good.
I'm always kind of proud of the teams that we pull together.
That you put together,
and
but when your team feel that way, then they can go out and provide that same type of leadership for the young people that we serve.
Yeah, I hope
because
so.
they know what that feels like.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because working with youth in foster care comes with a unique set of challenges in and of itself, right? And making sure they're seen, making sure they're heard, making sure they're validated, or feel validated in the work, and even celebrated in the work. So one of our affirmation, or I shouldn't say one of our affirmation, but our main affirmation is we tell our kids, we have them go through this quote, "I can do great things because I was created to do great things." So really instilling that in our young people. And sometimes I feel like, even with all that we do, sometimes I'm wondering if we creating a entitled society. Because sometimes when you feel like you're not doing enough, then you get the backlash, and it's like, oh my gosh, but I'm so trying. Like I want to make sure you succeed. But if we can't serve in this capacity, then are we failing you? Do you experience that at all?
All the time.
All the time? Okay. I am not alone. All right.
That could be our next conversation.
Yes, right? Oh my, Matt, this has been so good, and I feel like we're only scraping the surface of all the things.
I appreciate all these questions. I was noticing how much I was enjoying getting excited talking about it. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to
of course,
reflect on some of
absolutely. And I look forward to Kids in the Spotlight even collaborating.
I would love that.
With
I
you
can't
all.
wait to.
Because I've just, like I said, I'm a fan of your work and all of the things that you all are doing. especially serving our youth.
Yeah, well, thank
We
you.
need more. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is always the hardest part of the show for me when I have to land the plane. But I hope that you have heard something today that will help you on your leadership journey, because Matt has shared so many amazing gems, so many things for us to think about, so many opportunities for us to have a mind shift in how we assess things. For me, it's fundraising, okay? I've got a new way of really thinking about approaching and how I approach fundraising. So I hope you grab some amazing nuggets and gems today, again, to help you on your leadership reality journey. And remember to do those 3 magical things: like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, have an amazing day and leadership journey. Bye now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is our show for today. I hope you were inspired and you gained some valuable nuggets that will help you to become a better leader and to walk in your God-given authority. Bye until next time.